Hey there, ghouls and ghosts. Welcome to Seven Scorpion Tarot. I am your host with the most, and I want to welcome you to tonight's reading. So, tonight we are going to read for New Moon in Sagittarius. That just moved into its placement just recently, and I was kind of noodling on this earlier, and let me turn down the TV a little bit. There we go. Uh, there are a lot of interesting intersections with the new moon in Sagittarius, Mercury retrograding through Sagittarius, and then, the full moon coming up on the 15th, the same day that Mercury stations direct. That full moon will be right on the cusp of Gemini and Cancer. And so a lot of intersections between the moon, Jupiter, and Mercury. I thought that was pretty interesting. And since those are all happening Jupiter inwards, those are all personal planets and not the outer generational planets. So that's going to be celestial weather that we feel a little more prominently or profoundly. Pick a P word. um, so I just got a few notes here as I was trying to collect my thoughts. And of course, tea. I've got some peppermint tea. So good. So the new moon, it's a time to think of as planting seeds, beginnings. But given all the celestial placements during this 2 week period here, I was kind of thinking of it as what message is kind of being hidden or has been hidden away in our psyche, in our subconscious, that is starting to be drudged up, because Mercury in retrograde, that's, interference with communication. So potentially there's something that's been hidden away that's starting to surface, that's starting to kind of breach the soil. Or there could be, maybe you're having a hard time recalling your dreams right now. uh Sagittarius is the philosopher, the archer. So there might be some issues with less precision of thought. Maybe you can't quite formulate your thoughts. Like, that's one reason I wanted to sit down and kind of think on paper before doing a reading on new moon in Sagittarius, just because I was kind of I felt like I was almost there with the ideas that I was trying to formulate. I just couldn't quite get it together. So that's why I needed, pencil and paper to help me through that process. And, Mercury retrograde, those interferences with communication just might be a little, I don't know, confuddled, even just with you and yourself. I know I've been feeling that a little bit. Like, why am I dipping into old thought patterns? Like, I thought we were past this, you know? But hey, retrograde. Whatever. And that's the note I have here about doubting personal gnosis, like the things that you've come comfortable with believing, trusting, just for some reason, there's some like doubt springing up. So then the full moon in on that Gemini Cancer cusp on the 15th, we got a note saying the message to or from the twins or crab becoming clear. A little convoluted. But this would be where like your personal chart would really come into play, into being able to interpret how the celestial weather is going to affect you. And same with, the Sagittarius placements as well. But like for me, my Gemini placement is the IC, the Imam Koli, I think. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. But it's in the fifth house. So, who is that? Leo? I think it's Leo. Uh, so I see in the fifth house in Gemini. What is fifth house? Romance, self-expression, play, and creativity. Interesting. And the note I have here is from the interpretation of the app or the main app that I use for astrological purposes. It's the Chani app, Chani Nicholas. Really like that app. But the note that stuck out to me about her interpretation of my placement is the 9 Greek muses serve as surrogate parents. I thought that was really interesting, especially given that my Cancer placement is Chiron. So that's a mother wound. So it's really doubling up on a lot of home themes for me. And I can kind of see how that would make manifest in my life, especially in the Gemini placement. Because like the 9 Greek muses as surrogate parents, I was such a creative kid, you know, theater, music, art. I always had my nose in a book, you know, and a lot of that was escapism. It was escapism from the type of environment that I was growing up in. And that Gemini placement of the twins really reinforces that because, like, from the outside, there was one image, the perception is reality, public facing side of things. And then behind closed doors was a totally different matter. It was, dysfunction, and it's just really just not even nearly the same thing that was presented as the public image. And then the way that the sign rulers kind of linked up through everything, I thought was really interesting. I have like little double exclamation points in some of my notes here. So Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So that's that Mercury retrograde connection. And Cancer ruled by the moon. So the connection to both the new and the full moon. And so Gemini is third house, so communication, sharing, how one interacts with others and their ties to the community. And a couple of the traits of Gemini are adaptability and curiosity. So, at least in my case, I can see that expression of the adaptability from my home life and through many different periods within my life, but learning how to cope with my situation with creativity, with, drawing. I used to always have like a little sketchbook or something around and I'd, doodle away. Um, and always had to have my Walkman, always had to have music, um, either playing into my ears or, I was in band and whatnot. And these were different ways for me to cope with a situation I wasn't able to leave until I was older. And that goes into the Cancer placement of the fourth house, which Cancer is at the bottom of the wheel. So it's going to be the foundational qualities. So, like ancestry, tradition, the home life, and some of those qualities of Cancer are nurturing, emotional, home bodies. So, a lot of home life stuff might be coming up. Uh, and it might even feel kind of piercing. And I'm just making that reference with, the archer. The archer might be zoning in like right into those wounds, like tapping in directly, and they might not feel very good for those wounds to be exposed. I know when there's memories I don't either want to deal with or don't want to be found, my brain does revolt. And through that can express itself as mood. Uh, my mood might be a little bit sour, might have lower tolerance for people. That's definitely one of my first flags. I already have a fairly low tolerance for people, but it gets even remarkably lower. Uh, and I might slip into old, like, bad habits or something like that. Like, just habits that I've previously broken that I'm like, wait, like, why am I doing this again? I might be triggered. I might be in an old memory pattern or an emotional pattern caused, by a memory that hasn't been addressed yet, through therapy or in my support group or, what have you. And we all have our ways that these express themselves, like short temper, might not be able to concentrate at work, or your own creative projects or within interpersonal relationships. You might be, lost in the sauce of your own mind. But overall, really interesting kind of three-way intersection with that Jupiter, Moon, and Mercury all kind of crossing over here in the next couple of weeks. So a lot going on. But my last note here, which is what I want to read on, is what's hidden away in our emotions about our past that's about to launch forward. So, and the reason that I have that phrasing there with like launching forward is both Mercury and Jupiter are in retrograde right now, and Jupiter is retrograding through Gemini. So it's like another layer of that intersection. So let's get some cards. And I want to, since this is digging into foundational past emotional issues and whatnot, I want to do the self, shadow, and ego reading placements. So we'll read for that authentic self, that higher self placement, and then what's at the root of the self, the personal and collective unconscious, and the ego and the persona. And we'll kind of see what's going on. All right, let's see. I hope everybody had a good holiday. Anybody who celebrated. I had a very nice, non-traditional Thanksgiving with a couple of friends and Chinese food. That was nice. It's a good vent sesh. We're able to chit-chat about what's going on with us and just kind of vent off some steam. And on the capitalist holy high holiday, I made a point of, I got food from some local spots, and that's it. Didn't do any shopping. I waited until the next day. And then I got, my usual stuff that I get every month. And I did make a point of this year, one of the first things I did when I got paid this month was order my Christmas present for myself. Because last year I put it off and then I didn't end up buying it. So I prioritized it this year. So changes have been made. So the first position I'm going to pull for is going to be the self. And this is the Dark Crystal Tarot deck. Sorry if you hear any thumping. I have one and or two neighbors that don't know how to close a door like normal people. Let's see. Oop. Okay. So, yep, I'm pulling for the authentic self, the higher self. 6 of Pentacles and the 5 of Stones in reverse. So the 5 of Swords in reverse. Equal give and take. And conflict. Unresolved conflict, potentially. Oh, maybe this is rumination. Because swords, air, mind. And that's very Mercury. It's very Hermes. That, maybe rumination is getting in the way of, or has the potential to get in the way of you equally giving to connections you do want to maintain, or active connections in your life, because you could be ruminating on conflict of the past, of people that are no longer in your life. And I mean, the way the cards came out, the stones were in the background. So maybe this is a looming issue, or just that potential energy behind it. I wonder what the author says about the reverse position. Let's see. Reversed. Nina and Therma are challenged to build a glass castle to settle their feud. In the end, they compromise and cooperate to create something incredible. The reversed Five of Stones is asking you to build your own glass castle. You must mend a relationship and end an argument so you can move forward. Interesting. So I would say, only mend a relationship if it's a healthy choice for you. And if it's not a healthy choice for you, there is still the option of reconciling your feelings regarding that relationship. And since this is the Six of Pentacles, I mean, Six of Gems, Six of Pentacles, maybe there's some examining that needs to be done about how you contributed to a conflict, how both sides contributed to a conflict. Because I know I've I've definitely had some feelings on, I made the incredibly difficult and painful decision to estrange myself from pretty much everybody I've ever known, including my family. And it was an absolutely necessary step to protect my health and wellness. Um, I don't love how it went down. It, man, it's one of those things that, like, I don't know if I could have broken free if it hadn't been that intense. I still not happy about it that it was that intense. It's like a uncomfortable feeling. I don't really know what words to use with it exactly, but I also can't live there. I can't live in rumination. I have a life to live. Like, I made that painful decision in order to get healthy, to be well. That's what I have to go do, you know. It's like, I don't know, like almost like survivor's guilt. That's like the closest thing that I can like come to, like a metaphor or an analogy comparison to. It's like continuing walking forward even though I know I've caused pain. I know I've been subject to pain. I know I'm not going to get any kind of apology I was once waiting for. I'm also not going to, I mean, at this juncture, at least, just in the interest of my mental health, I'm not going to be sending out apology letters anytime in the near future. Uh, and I'm sure there are people probably waiting on an apology from me. Or maybe they were at some point. They're probably just living their life now, like what I'm trying to do. And life's complicated, you know? There are a lot of things that were presented to me when I was a kid that, like, when I was younger, that actions determine, the moral value of the person. I don't know if I buy that anymore. Like, that's so oversimplified, you know? I don't know. I don't want to get too far into the weeds about that, but Hey, go to therapy if you need it, right? I go once a week and I can't recommend it enough. I also do a support group once a week. I'm going to pull for the root position, root of the self. Maybe what's going on beneath the surface of that higher self. Yeah, support group, therapy, and having non-judgmental people in your life that will give you their opinion, when appropriate. Sometimes you need it. And, when you're living with difficult health conditions, I think having people in your life that know how to read the room is really important. Uh, yeah, I think that's valuable in any instance, like regardless of if you are or not living with a serious health condition or conditions. Because they always seem to come with, like, I don't know many people that have like one thing wrong with them. It's always like a cluster. And this celestial weather is interesting too, with all the focus on the family and the interference with communication and things like that, and like the proximity to the holidays. It just seems very, like, man, just hitting me over the head with family stuff, huh? A mother wound for Chiron and Cancer. Because that, I believe, in the, is it fifth house? Fourth house for Cancer, whichever. I think that's right. Fourth house for Cancer. Mother is specifically mentioned because of the nurturing quality. See if we can't get talking. The Eight of Vials, Eight of Cups. So leaving something behind. So that kind of points to rumination and, live your life. Maybe the difficult emotions need to be put in their appropriate vessels and placed on the shelf to be revisited at another time. Because it's really easy to get lost in, or at least get caught up in, mental health land. I definitely, mainlined a lot of mental health content and stuff like that out of necessity, just given the, like, gravity of the situation that I was dealing with, I might recommend taking a more bite-sized approach to things than I did. Then, it was pretty much dominating my life through the pandemic pretty much this whole time. I've been on a 5-year roller coaster of chaos and crisis. And I feel like I'm just really getting my feet under me. And that's hard. It's hard to be in survival mode for that long. It really makes you numb to kind of everything. And I definitely had to go within in order to just to be able to withstand that storm. That was not, I couldn't maintain like a normal life. I really had to put me first and everybody else second, except for my fur babies, of course. The immediate household is really all I've been concerning myself with, and I'm still not quite ready to branch out too terribly far away from that immediate household. But I'm trying. I'm trying to say yes to more things instead of no to everything. Trying to parse it out a little bit. I said yes to one plan and no to another, and trying to sort out other plans with other people, and got a friendsmas plan in the works. So I think that 8 of Cups might be coming to peace with the things that you had to walk away from. It's like I'm talking about my own personal examples here because, those are the examples I have at my disposal to use here on this channel. But I'm sure that there's some sort of relatable experience that you guys have had to, whether it's a job that you've had to walk away from or whatever flavor of interpersonal relationship, be it familial, romantic, platonic, like whatever. It's tough. It's tough to walk away from those things, but staying in rumination is going to prevent us from giving equally to ourselves and others. So let's see what's going on in the shadow. We'll go into the personal shadow, the personal unconscious. And it's a good time right now in the new moon for shadow work. So if there's, any guided meditations or journal exercises and whatnot, but there's just that correspondence with the dark moon and being able to access the shadow a little bit better. Ooh, almost thought about it. I didn't see what it was, so. And I know for me, in terms of shadow work, the type of stuff that I've been working on recently, there's some identity stuff that's been coming up, like my relationship to the word witch. I have a really unusual reaction when that word is used towards myself that I don't have towards anybody else. Uh, I started practicing when I was 13, and I stopped when I was 14 because of the way my mother was treating me. It was right around that time that she had taken to calling me a Satanist and a terrorist. And mind you, this was not all too long after 9/11. And my dad was in DC, he made it out. But for a mother to call her daughter a terrorist, like less than a year after 9/11, when my dad was in DC, like imagine the damage that wrought on my poor undeveloped brain at the time. And I wasn't getting proper, psychiatric care. I was getting, prescription drugs, prescription antidepressants, but not actual like therapy, you know. Shut her up. Shut her up with whatever drugs are appropriate. That zombie effect of those drugs was pretty profound on me. And I'm still dealing with a lot of the anger of being improperly diagnosed and not getting proper treatment for, I've been having seizures this whole time that are, an extension of basically an extension of PTSD. And just the absolute incredible amount of suffering that I went through. And I'm still like trying to wrap my mind around how did everybody miss that? You know? Like I understand that the flavor of seizure that I have is unusual. But man, that's pretty wicked. Like, not in a good way. I usually use that expression in a more positive manner, but I digress. But so I'm trying to reclaim the word witch, and I love the acronym woman in total control of herself. That's very me. And here we go. Death. Ooh, transformation in the shadow. I think very on point for what I was just blabbering about. But I'm trying to reclaim that word and some of the things I've lost from going fully inward in respect to practicing, you know, and not getting the opportunity to explore, like, what does it mean to be a witch and not be Wiccan, not be pagan? And at least now I have the freedom to do so in peace, like without low impact versions of the Bible being given to me, or fictional stories that for some reason all centered around Jesus. Like, why am I keep getting these books that they're not the Bible, but they're definitely Bible adjacent? I don't know. It's tough. But Death in the Shadow, that's big, big shadow work, big transformation. And I love the purple in this. I'm partial to purple myself. And who is that? Let's see the author. says 13. Celadon. Resisting change will not prevent the inevitable. A transformation awaits on the horizon, and although it will be difficult, you will emerge a stronger person. When Celadon learns of the Skeksis' betrayal, she bargains, blames others, and lashes out before ultimately accepting the truth. Once you process your loss, you can claim the fuller, brighter future that awaits you. Actually, that really links up quite well with my example from my personal life of like, I'm really angry about the things that I've been through and the way they went down and all the support that I didn't get that I deserved and the acceptance that I didn't get that I deserved, as a kid. And like, I should have been able to read Harry Potter openly because it was a big deal. Like, fantasy and sci-fi was so not allowed at grandma's house that like I couldn't even read Harry Potter. Man, I don't know. But I can't change those things. All I can do is walk forward and keep the people in my life that accept, this period of exploration and understand that the things I've been keeping to myself, for over 20 years because of trauma, that just don't judge me for it, that don't try to change what I'm doing, that, maybe take an interest, and if it's not their thing, it's not their thing, whatever. But just being able to enjoy the time I have now, getting to know myself and recognizing that, like, had I not gone through all these difficult things recently, in the past 5 years and whatnot, I don't know if I ever would have gotten back to my authentic self. Uh, as much as it sucks to say, like, things kind of had to go down the way they did given the circumstances. And it opens a door for, like, oh, I just saw this on Instagram. It was like, when you're true to yourself, you not only lose people that aren't meant for you, but you find people you're aligned with. So that, like, having the opportunity to build community, to really find genuine, authentic friendships that are built on my authentic self. Because that's like a whole thing. Like, it's kind of hard to really connect with people when you've been forced into hiding within yourself, if that makes any sense. Well, let's get a card for the collective unconscious. And I know I'm using a lot of personal examples right now. Maybe there's, I hope there's not things in your life that you can relate to in mine. But if there are, take it how it resonates and apply it where it fits. And if it doesn't, just, leave it behind. But this feels like a very deeply emotional time. Like, not only with, at least here in the States, it's the holidays and whatnot, which is emotions run high. Um, I pulled them out. But emotions run high, and then plus all the planetary positions. So King of Gems and Seven of Gems. So Seven of Pentacles and King of Pentacles. Master of Materials and Patience. Hmm. Maybe you're patiently waiting for your Christmas present because this is in the material realm. Or this could be, since this is the culmination of Pentacles, someone who has the confidence to be patient. Oh, okay. Just in regards to material matters. I want a third card to maybe see the nature of it. Or this could be your attitude towards material things are changing. And in a very significant way, because this is in the shadow. So transforming there's something else there. Let's see. Third card for the collective unconscious. Maybe you know a reward is coming for all your hard work, all your hard shadow work. The Hermit. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that is like, that makes me feel like Dark Night of the Soul since it came out in the shadow side. So you may be confident in the rewards of the emotional labor that you've gone through. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, here's a bag of money. Like, as nice as that would be. Um, but the toil and labor of going through those dark nights of the soul, of seeing the changes in your material realm, like interpersonal relationships that are really genuine and authentic because you were able to get in touch with the true self. You were able to walk away from conflicts that were interfering with your ability to express yourself, express your true self. And I mean, death in the shadow. Like people talk about ego death, but what about shadow death? Of like, you've brought, pardon me, you've brought these painful wounds of shame, of guilt. You've tended to them enough to bring them into the light. That hurts. That feels like so raw, exposing parts of yourself that you've kept hidden away for most of your life. So, and it's coming out in the collective unconscious, and there are so many of us that are going through these difficult journeys. I'm going to start shuffling for the ego side. There's so many of us that are going through these difficult journeys. Like I had mentioned, I'm in a support group. There are more people than you think facing their shadows, really doing the work. And there's community to be found in that. Because trying to do it all alone, whew, I didn't really start making big leaps and bounds, like really big, meaningful progress until I started finding community in what I was dealing with. And not to say you can't find peace on your own. I would say that's like the exception, not the rule. That can become maladaptive very, very quickly. Because solitude is safety, don't get me wrong. I've spent a lot of time in that solo mode. It can get a little too safe. There's a lot of life to be seen out there, whether by yourself or with others, but it can almost be addicting to be doing the solo thing. Knight of Vials, so Knight of Cups. Oh, what a cool card. I like that. So, a message. Oh, that police song is coming to mind. Message in a Bottle. So the knight, I mean, I think of as the messenger who has the message, because they're, typically on their ponies, Pony Express. And the Knight of Cups, so he's going to be the Knight of Emotions. And it's in the ego side. Oh, so maybe your emotions are going to be swift and there could be some ego involvement. Like maybe ego's going to get out of check or something, or out of balance because of the night. What another? Because this might be like determining whether the message that might be trying to come through from your subconscious hitting interference, is this coming from Gemini or is this coming from Cancer? And this could also be what's launching forward, like with fervency. Because that ego can definitely fuel some fires. The devil, just as I was talking about the ego fueling some fires. And again, what a cool card. I love this deck. Shouldn't watch this movie again. I just did recently, like not all too long ago, but can never get enough. So the devil can be the card of addiction. So we talked a little bit about bad habits or old thought patterns and stuff earlier. Let's see what the book says about vials. Knight of Vials. Oops. Knight of Vials, Rikier. Charming, charismatic, and suave, the Knight of Vials infuses your reading with an appreciation for beauty and a longing for romance. You may feel pulled by your heart, with your attention turning towards volunteering, caring for a friend, or even pursuing a crush. Let your emotions lead you, and don't be afraid to let your hands, feet, head, and life belong to what you love. Interesting pairing with the devil. $15. The darkening. The darkening creeps across the land, affecting all beings, including the mighty Erethem. Such darkness must be confronted and understood. The devil represents addiction and unhealthy relationships or behaviors. Like the darkening, the trick of the devil is to make you think you are at its mercy, but your capacity to heal is much stronger. Seek support, be open about your struggles, and confront the devil head on. So, this has touched on a lot of themes that we've talked about here, and like seeking support, support group, therapy, stuff like that. Unhealthy relationships, behaviors. So maybe your ego is going to convince you that you need some sort of boost or something like that. Like, I don't know, like seeking external validation through relationships. Uh, or maybe being like flashy with spending or something like that. Like trying to give people a different impression of you, like an inauthentic one. Like something starts to try and overcompensate and cover the authentic self. Like that can be a trauma response, like a panic mode of like, don't let anybody see me, like the real me, and start doing things that you may not normally do in response to that feeling of panic. And so we'll get a card for the persona, and that's the very outer edge of the ego. So like the public facing mask that we might present to the world, or that we do present to the world. We all have it. And that would be like in zodiac terms, your rising sign would be like your persona. Let's see, for the persona. So, like, an example of this, I was trying to think of, like, when I was younger, I went through a really heavy atheist phase. Like, the type of lectures that I was going to see in college and whatnot, the type of books that I was reading, and, you know, took quite the shine to Richard Dawkins at the time. Not that he's not brilliant, and same for any of the other authors that I was reading. But the way my mother was treating me and seeing how accepted things like Christianity or Catholicism and whatnot were in my day-to-day life, and then anything surrounding witchcraft or in that like taboo area was rejected, then I went to an interesting extreme that I rejected everything, the potential for everything. I was hurt, and I didn't know how to process or even name my emotions at the time. And, I'm still now sorting out what I feel, how I feel, and whatnot. I'm getting that exploration time, open exploration time I really didn't get before. It's interesting how those things manifest in our lives. I'm very much like, do what you want as long as you're not hurting anybody. And as long as it stays out of legislature. Separation of church and state, all those things. Oop, how many is that? Taking it. 3. That'll work. Those just plopped right out. 10 of stones in reverse. So 10 of swords in reverse. Oh my god, my eyeball. Hang on. Whoa. Oh, is that a goopy? Oh my goodness. Whoa. There we go. Maybe. Intermission. Technical eyeball difficulties. Hang on. Okay. Page of stones. So page of swords. So the student of the mind. And 10 of wands in reverse. So 2 10s, both in reverse, and both the most difficult tens. And the student of the mind. So the 10 of swords reversed is basically like, all right, you hit rock bottom. There's only one other direction to go, and that's up. So that's pretty good for the persona. Like, I don't know, if you're a recovering degenerate like me. I don't know if I'll ever recover from being a degenerate. But the 10 of wands, so laying the burden down. But then page of stones, page of swords in reverse. So is there a lesson yet to be learned that is like just the last piece to this puzzle? That'll be what lets you lay the burden down. That feels right. And maybe that's what is being brought up with the full moon, with going from the new moon to the full, is it's hidden right now. And maybe through meditation, through your dreams, or active imagination, if that's something you're familiar with. Say, tread cautiously with that. Talk to a therapist that, I mean, all of them are familiar with Carl Jung, but one of them that's familiar with active imagination and what that entails. Because from what Carl Jung said in the Red Book, sounds like it got pretty intense. So, just be careful if you're rooting around in the unconscious of what you might find there. So I think that's what's going on here. And it's interesting that it's in the persona. So in the outermost part of the ego. Maybe it's something like staring us right in the face and we're like not ready to see it. I don't know. You might have to determine that. Chew on that a little bit. Let's see. We'll check the book. Page of Stones. Is that the beginning? Page of Stones. Tavra. The Page of Stones symbolizes exploration, communication, or no, that's the upright, sorry. When reversed, this page finds you biting your tongue. Don't hold back from speaking your mind, even if it means disagreeing with someone you care about. Your thoughts are more valuable than your silence. Okay, so that is reinforcing the be true to yourself. So maybe there's one more ordeal before the reward. That's the monomyth structure. Maybe familiarize yourself with that, like the Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey. Interesting. Let's see. I'm going to get an alchemy card. I think that'll be the just the overall background energy for everything all together. And then we'll get a couple of self-care cards. This was a lot going on. Going with this one. The peacock's tail. How pretty. All the nice colors of the rainbow. It's cool design there in the center. Kind of looks like snakeskin with flowers and crescent moon and maybe an eyeball. Kind of looks like an eyeball. Let's see. LV. Full vision, the spectrum, inclusivity. The peacock's tail is a sacred image in alchemy. The mesmerizing image of tail feathers opens to mark the alchemist having shifted from single to multi-perspective. That's interesting with going into the full moon on the cusp of Gemini and Cancer. But this is a great achievement. The alchemist has opened 1,000 sets of eyes instead of one. They've discarded black and white thinking and allowed the full spectrum of colors, nuances, and solutions to come into the fold. Creative solutions to complex social and political polarities can be found in this sacred space. The force field of possibilities has opened, and the alchemist has entered a new paradigm belonging to the multiplicity, dimensionality, and inclusion. Utilize this perspective for positive change while it lasts. When falling back into black and white thinking, as any alchemist will do, envision the splendor of the peacock's tail. Each feather contains a shimmering universe of possibility. Go deeper. Watch the movie The Wizard of Oz to ponder 1,000 eyes. Just made me think of Archangel Gabriel, the all-seeing eye. Interesting. Well, and it kind of talked, like we talked about that a bit with like falling back into old thought patterns. So maybe one of those sun catchers, like the little like crystals. Those are fun. And with caution too, because those are, refracting light and don't want to have any fire hazards or anything hanging around. So let's get some self-care and get you out of here because I think I've been yapping for a while. The phone's kind of above my face, so I don't really know how long these videos are until I'm done. But I noticed I go for a while. Overall good reading though. I think there's a lot to contemplate, like a lot of deep stuff to contemplate, at least for myself. I don't know about you guys. Oh, Gideon the Ninth, The Locked Tomb. Really good book series. The tagline for these books is just a riot. It's gosh dang it. Lesbian necromancers exploring a haunted Gothic castle in space. It was the in space part that really got me. But really, really funny character. Really interesting book, very unique idea. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the series. I think three of the planned four books are out. I'm hoping she's not going to pull a George R. R. Martin, and we'll be in for a many year wait on that next book. But we shall see. Because I think the third and fourth book were intended to be one book, but then it ended up like needing to be split into two books for this series. That's too many. Just taking the bottom one. Passenger, Deftones. Always a good choice. I like the visualizer video on YouTube with the horse myself. And they've got some other ones too with like an owl. Also, really cool visualizer videos for different songs. But overall, a lot going on, a lot of big celestial weather. So take care of yourself, put your feet up, read a book. If books aren't your jam, I'm sure you can find something to watch, find something to listen to. You could also do an audiobook. You could just kick back and listen to those. I might actually use my Audible credit this month for that, since I've already read them on paper. Actually, I think I'm going to do that. It's a good idea for myself. But overall, I hope this helps and I hope it resonates. But if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.